Welcome, friends, curiosity seekers, and connoisseurs of fantasy everywhere. You have found yourself in the realm of Darkeport Presents, and I have with me the. I have this one, yes. So, Miss Anika, how are you doing, my love?
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
I'm delighted that you could make it all the way up here.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a trek for you. And you were saying before the cameras were rolling how weird it was to be here in a non-stream night, huh?
It's weird. It's odd to be where no one is here. And I think it's odd. It's like you want people to like hang out with and talk to, but
Absolutely.
But here we are. It's just you and me.
We're gonna mano a mano. I'll get to it, but that does take us back to when we started, huh?
Ooh, it does.
It does. That's actually I front-loaded some of those. So I wanted to start with as much or as little as you want to get into who you are as a person. Who are you as a human?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so there's a quote. I love Ted Lasso. Great show. But yeah, watch it, but
Our
watch
sponsor.
Watch Darkeport first.
Yeah, that's our next sponsor.
Yeah. Can you imagine? And it's apparently there's a quote from Walt Whitman. I don't actually think it's Walt Whitman that said it, but he saw it on a wall and it said, "Be curious, not judgmental."
Oof.
And I think that quote kind of encompasses who I am as a person. So I love people. I have always been super. Like as a kid, I was insecure and I had a lot of I was not an extrovert whatsoever. I was introverted 100%. And I was an art nerd. Like I loved eating my lunch in the school art room because I wanted to work. But I think as I've grown, my extroversion is that a word?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. It's grown so much to where now, instead of being that nervous little kid, I'm more that curious person.
I love that about you.
And thanks, me too.
Yeah, I really do.
But I grew up in a way that my parents were very strict. They were very religious. And I had a great childhood. Like I did. I think they raised me the way that they thought was right, which is perfect. But
As parents do.
And, parenting is hard. I'm not a parent. So I have dogs. And so it's different in that light. But for me, it was always a judgmental area. And so that was a huge thing. And so I've grown to be completely opposite. So I'm not a judgmental person. I'm just not. And it's a direct reflection on how I grew up. Mm-hmm. Complete opposite. So be curious, not judgmental.
When do you think that changed for you?
Recently.
Interesting.
In the past couple of years, I'm sure. COVID was a huge thing where I went through a stint of playing way too much Animal Crossing and losing myself. Don't do it. My island, she's crazy. And it was fun and it kept me somewhat grounded, but they were 8-hour work days where I had to take care of my island. And for me, it was a lot of drinking and a lot of kind of figuring myself out because I need to work. Like I love working.
You are a really active person.
I'm proud of, and I'm proud of what I do. And so.
Work ethic.
Yeah. And that's
sometimes to your detriment. Yeah.
Too much. Here we are. But I think with that, it kind of taught me that I needed that social interaction, and I didn't have it for, like we were saying, 3, 4, 6 months.
Yeah, I know. It was, yeah.
So it changed my lifestyle to be like, you need to be more active. You need to get out there.
That's pretty remarkable, Anika, that you took something that was, massively impactful globally, and you kind of jujitsu'd it into self-improvement.
Yeah, and I didn't do alone. It's never alone. I went to therapy for a really long time, and that was amazing. Go to therapy. It changed a lot of my perspective, so that was a really great thing for me. So, yeah, I got really happy.
Well, you just reminded me, I will circle I will circle back to that because there is a saying that role playing. I didn't invent this, but I certainly popularized it in a certain subset of Californian LARPs that when I was out there. That gaming is a cheap form of psychotherapy.
So I'm going to stop you there because that's actually true. Because when I joined Violet Never's game, it was and sat next to you.
Where we met, right? Which was going to be my first. Right. Keep going.
But it was so calming to be sitting in a room with people that you could be yourself with, that you could kind of just take and be a completely different person for a little bit, but everyone knows who you are. And so the acting part of it was always fun. The chaos was always fun, where you didn't have to show your face and be really professional and whatever. You could just have fun. And that was amazing too. So
there is, I mean, gaming as an activity, that's the whole conversation of itself, but gaming as an activity is has so many different facets to it.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. Fun, self-exploration, learning, competitive, collaborative. It's like this weird, it's like collaborative storytelling, and then you have these moments of intense competition, which is,
you do though.
It's just really, it's really interesting. It's kind of unique.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've done a lot of different stuff, and I've never found anything that's exactly like that.
Yeah.
That has that same mix. Well, do you want to tell the story of how we met?
Oh no, I like when you tell it.
You like when I
like when you tell it because it's cute.
Well, this girl rolled up to one of the rare times where I was the player. Thank you, Violet. Thank you, Ever, for allowing me to be there, for sure. And she sat down, and within, I don't know, I want to say 10 minutes. It might have been faster than that. It was quick.
Yeah.
You were just quipping back and forth with me, back and forth.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that you were a vet, and it turns out that
I wasn't.
How much had you played before then?
That was probably the first time in person that I had played.
Wow.
Yeah.
The first time?
I think so.
Because you told me the other day that the time that I always thought was your first time had been virtual.
It was virtual.
Yeah.
So Ever and Violet, hello.
Yeah.
They actually, during COVID, because we didn't have anything to do,
Right.
They were like, hey, join our game. And so we joined, and it was fun. But again, I'm more of an analog person versus a digital person. So
Yes.
I think playing in person makes it so much stronger as a game, and so much more emotionally attractive that playing online was just not my thing. And so we played a couple sessions, I think, maybe 2. Ugh. And then we went on our merry way. And I was like, I really liked that, but
You want more.
I want more.
Yeah.
And so I joined that game.
Yeah.
So.
How did you slip into character that easily with me, not knowing me at all? Because you knew them already.
I have no idea. I don't think it's not something that I typically think about, because it's I had worked on that character Herb for a while, because he was my that was the character that we kind of sat down and did all the character notes, all the things. I had a backstory for him.
Yeah, you did a session with Ever.
I did a session with Ever, and it was it was super great because I got all the character details and all of everything about a character, like past, present, future, whatever, hopes, dreams. That kind of stuff is what drives me in gaming. I can do the battle scenes. That's fine. You can tell I get really nervous during battle scenes because I'm like, am I doing it right? But at the same time, I want all of that character journey. That's what I want.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is why I'm sad we didn't record the beginning of Katrin, because it truly was kind of here's your character sheet, but not really. Here's her beginning. And
I'm actually gonna go through the life cycle of a Darkeport player and character. because you were the first one, and I think it would be that's not actually recorded anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an interesting, it might be of help for some GMs out there who want to do something similar, and it's definitely not standard how I approach these characters.
Yeah.
Katrin is actually, I'll hold off on that. Hold off until we get there. If you said everything, or if everything has been said that you care to, perfectly fine. Do you want to talk about why you're leaving, or what's happened?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think work is work.
Nothing nefarious. Nefarious. We love her. We didn't scare her away, I promise.
They hate me.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding.
Obviously. Yeah, obviously.
I came back on a random day. No, I mean, work is work. I think with getting a promotion at work, it was a huge step in my career.
That was a whole tier up.
Yeah,
promotion,
and being part of like marketing and things like that, it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And the company that I work for is great, and I needed to focus on it because it's something that I want to do, and I love Darkeport. I love this table. I love all of you, and I will be back. Don't worry. But that's on tape. You can keep that one. Just repeat that and then send it to me. But I needed to, I think, focus on that for a little bit.
I agree. I mean, when Anika broke the news to me, we sat down, and I mean, there was like a good hour of just trying to thresh out like every possible alternative or workaround or whatever, and it's like no, because you've been working toward this for years now.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole time I've known you, I know you've been building up momentum professionally, and all of that.
Yep.
Okay, well, obviously you're welcome back whenever, and that we'll keep a candle in the window there.
I like it.
Speaking of which, I feel like as we're getting into, I have one more question. Then I feel like once we start talking about Darkeport, you have never had the treat and also the agony of smelling that at full bloom.
Yeah.
So we gotta light that so you can smell it fill the room.
Well, no, I smelled it when I lit it last time.
But you weren't here very long.
No, I wasn't. I'm kind of scared.
I
almost want to just leave it.
Ketchup candles.
It's gonna make me hungry. It's gonna smell like bread, and bread is my weakness. So I don't know. That's a good idea.
So to the CEO of Ketchup Candles, Christoph, you're doing your freaking job.
You're doing great,
yeah.
Honestly, because if I get hungry from a candle, we got.
Have like a pica moment where I want to eat. Like as a kid, I would chew on plastic sometimes, and then I want to eat the candles. Bizarre things.
Sitting there just like eating, scooping it out. Ugh. I can't.
So I guess you kind of already answered this, but I've been asking everyone variations of this question. What space does role-playing occupy for you, in your life?
I think it's a weird answer, but it's some really positive brain space. I know that sounds odd, but it truly is. It's like part of my brain just kind of like, oh, we're doing fun things? Cool. And I can be kind of that sarcastic, goofy, whatever, but for me, it kind of, I don't know, it's such a gateway to be creative and just very spontaneous if you want to, or just quiet. And it just depends on your character and how you play it and how you love it, and I don't know.
Now you, to that point, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but that's fine. Like I said before we start, we can be indulgent for once. I don't have to think about, oh God, is the scene running too long? Am I describing things well? Blah blah.
We're just hanging out
and any of that stuff. You had a huge, I would say, natural advantage in that when you're just over there chilling, your reactions are like kind of legendary amongst the troupe, and it it's beautiful to watch you and Donnie feed off of each other.
Oh my God, Donnie, yes.
But how and there's this whole thing like where some people have to try to like outwardly express themselves and all of this, and you just like fell into it, and you gave like the perfect amount of, again, telling her before we did this, it was like the perfect amount of like snark and quip and like witticism, but it never overpowered the scene, but it was like this fine spice that just kind of pervaded everything. Sometimes did crack me up, too, but I don't think like ever disrupted me or whatever. So
yeah.
How did that come, like how did that flow through you? How did that come to you?
I don't know. I think I wear my heart on my sleeve, and with that kind of stuff, it's just It's funny because we talked about it a little bit ago where it was like, oh, you don't really pay attention to like the microphones or the cameras.
Right, the cameras
like
and
that.
yeah, am I on mic? Am I in frame? Blah, blah, yeah, all the stuff that gets into my head sometimes. Yeah.
But like with me, it's like I do somewhat pay attention to it, but only in the moments when I'm not playing Katrin. So I take it in the sense that I can make these like funny jokes or little quips or like say things to like Donnie, or like I'll whisper something, and it's mostly it's always out of character. It's never in character.
Right.
So I don't think, or I hope not, as Katrin, I've ever looked directly at the camera.
No. I've watched every minute of.
And I've tried.
I remember. Yeah.
Right. So I've tried to make that a very specific point because Anika is goofy and crazy and sarcastic as hell and like all that, which kind of bleeds into Katrin, but I always try to do it when I'm not playing my character. I
would say with Katrin, it's a lot more channeled, though.
Yeah.
She definitely has
She's a lot more focused with that. Yeah.
I mean, she has the sarcasm, but it tends to be a lot more silent but deadly, kind of
glare,
kind of in there, the glare, yeah. or even when she is dressing somebody down, it's very targeted, like one thing that I've noticed with that character is the economy of words that she would use with that character. You were quite efficient with it. She didn't use, which is a great contrast when I'd be going off about some scene or something, or one of the batshit characters that I'm playing, and you would manage to like hone in on the two most important things out of the whole diatribe, and really in character, and just really bring to bear on those points. The last session that you were with us with Griff was like a perfect example of that. Where that was a fascinating, tense debate, and it was like going point for point. But you really, as Katrin, you handled a pretty formidable character. I mean, he's a strong-willed guy who has his mission in life. So. I don't know if you were aware of that, or if you've ever thought about it that way, but I noticed it as a GM, as a veteran GM, I noticed that.
I think it's never been called out in that sense. I think for her, she has been really efficient. She's had to be.
Yeah.
And she was forced to, at an early age, go through what she went through. And so with that, her brain works so scientific, mathematical, like very precise. And she doesn't need to use more words. Like, she can do 2 words, call it a day, and still get her point across. And I think for her, it's wasted breath when she could be learning something else.
Which would frustrate Randy sometimes as a player, because he wanted the combo. He loves like the lore and the world building and all of that, And in a different campaign, he played a lore master. He was a less intellectual version, more of a sensei swashbuckling sort of situation. But he played a very Katrin-esque character in the sense of just always digging and trying to accumulate information and stuff like that. So he loves that, and it was cold sometimes to watch him just grab on and try to pull those nuggets out of you.
It's like, nope.
It's one of my and I'll ask you a question about this in a bit, but it's one of my regrets as a GM, because that relationship was just starting, and that would have been friggin' fascinating to watch, because Katrin had never had that kind of warm, constant, engaged paternal presence in her life. She'd had Figulus, but he was a very very different energy.
Complete opposite. Yeah. No.
And that's more like ornery grandpa or crazy uncle. Yeah. Depending. Yeah. He loves you, but he is off on his own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because it could have been her moment to have a father figure. So it's, yeah. I think Figulus will always be her grumpy grandpa, which is precisely what he is.
Well, he's in his seventh decade, well into the seventh decade, and she was 16 when we started that. Mm-hmm. So, life cycle of a Darkeport player character. Okay, you ready?
I'm scared. No, I'm just kidding.
So, my setup for this is for those who have wondered this, because Melissa had asked too. Our fabulous Melissa, our first Super Trooper, as it were. She had asked, like, how did I design the characters? So I made, I knew what the theme was. That's going to be that's going to be a video down the road. So yes, I did my world building with theme as my pole star,
of course,
as opposed to plot. And so I made these archetypes. I knew that you were the first player that I think that's on camera before, but you were the first player that I reached out to and asked to join this project with. Mm-hmm. I knew I wanted you. And the archetype that you got hooked up with was the prodigy will worker. That was where you're at. That was always going to be a difficult character to play.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, which we'll get into.
I got bamboozled. Bamboozled,
ladies and gentlemen. There you go. And I had everyone roll a die 20, and I knew what was going to be. So like 1 was the absolute bare minimum to be able to fulfill that archetype.
Yeah.
And those are probably under quote unquote point buy. It was slim pickings, and you rolled the best out of everybody in the group.
Yep.
And that's why Katrin has these just ridiculous stats,
Yep. Did it to myself.
So yeah, because there's a version of Katrin all the way, from probably like a 14 intelligence all the way up to a 20, and there's a version of her of having like an 8 wisdom all the way up to the 19 that she had. I mean, it just really depended on how that mind expanded, but there she was. And when you rolled that high, I was like, oh, okay, she was born in the river. Like, she was...
Did you know that immediately?
Once you rolled that, because I had been debating that, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to have any of the player characters. I wasn't sure if that's something that I wanted to introduce downstream, down the road in the narrative, or if that's a concept that I wanted to build a character around and have core. I wasn't sure, but when you rolled that, I was like, yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, answered.
Yeah, no, and it changed your relationship with Figulus. It changed some of the history, some really important parts, to it. There was even a moment where I was like playing around with you being a monobender instead, where you would have been a more instinctual creature. But I think the way it worked out was correct.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
It was a better channel for the lore. So that's what I did. Now, so you had that archetype, and what was your experience when you stepped into that role at first, and like for those first couple sessions?
Oh my God, I had no idea what a will worker was.
Deep prologue. So this is prologue. This is from Vampire the Masquerade. Was way back in the day. You can, for those of you interested, you can see when that came out, see what year that came out, and that exposed a little baby GM me. Well, I guess I was a toddler GM by then, but toddler GM me to the concept of prologue. So it's like where you do a whole, basically mini campaign focused on that character. So yeah, in that context, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, even in our first session, when you were like, oh, you're a will worker, and I was so new to D&D that I was just like, what the hell is a will worker? And I never asked, because I was like, oh, maybe it'll just come out eventually. Yeah. And I kind of like just made it work. I was like, okay, so she does magic. And then I realized, oh, okay, so it's this and this, because you had changed a lot of...
Oh, so much.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So much had changed from my understanding of 5e.
Like stock
right.
5e, yeah.
And I didn't know that much. Like I didn't. I think I had, played a rogue. I played...
A druid.
A druid.
Yep. That was an advantage, though, because you didn't have to unlearn all of the stuff, which is why I was willing to throw kind of just chuck you in like that.
throw me into a rogue position again. That was so fun. But
You had a lot of fun with that.
oh my God, Bramble. No, but for me, I think the first couple sessions was, I mean, it was a little nerve-wracking, like kind of like, okay, I don't know any of these people. I know Angel. But it was fun because it was kind of that same feeling of, I might not know these people, but I feel safe in this space, and I can do the same thing that I did when I sat next to you the first time, which is funny. It's the reason that I always sit next to you, which is really hilarious to me. So you sat on my left. You always sit on my left. In every single gaming situation that we've ever gamed.
God, you're right. No,
you always sit on my left.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Maybe
I think it's just like I think it's just a thing. But
because that table over at Violent Nevers has moved a couple times, a couple iterations of it too. Yeah. So yeah,
which is really funny because always on my left. So
I definitely want to hear about your experience at this table. I was actually how did it feel when you were playing Baby Katrin? Because we started her at 5.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think those sessions were. I think I was still nervous about those sessions too, because you have to think, like, obviously but like making decisions at that young an age for a character,
huge.
It's massive, and it changes so much about what the character could be doing. I mean, even the small things where I don't know if am I allowed to say stuff.
As long as it doesn't spoil anything that might yet happen.
I don't think so.
You have some knowledge now that
right.
sit down to
No, yeah. None of that. But her sitting on a rooftop looking at stars. That was, so she did that? Yeah, I think so. Like, she would be interested in that. And I think there's a lot of...
Different than your mentor. That was an important difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Because your attention was always further out than his. Mm-hmm. His was always very focused on the here and now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't know she was born in the river back then.
No, you didn't know any of that. But I would just describe things in a certain way.
Yeah. And it was just like, but I think playing a child is very interesting because I've never done that before. And having to kind of put yourself in that position.
It's really hard.
It's hard.
Yeah, because you were powerless to really.
Right.
You were making your little child machinations. Doing what you could do.
And
like your Uncle Publius with the chickens.
Yeah. And having to lie and do stuff and escape as a 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And the trauma that she went through, and I think playing that kind of character, but it also builds everything that she is today. It's funny because she always, whenever she has a very serious conversation or she like says something, then she walks away. Whenever she does that, which is something that she does all the time.
Sometimes to the consternation of your fellowship members. Yeah.
But she's done talking. She's done. So she leaves, and she doesn't need to go any further into detail because it's already been said. And her as a kid, it was kind of that she was alone. Like she was.
Even though you had a sister, you were totally alone.
She was so lonely. Yeah. And so that's just her mindset. And like having to play that is just, it's tough because I'm not like that. But it was challenging, but it was so good.
You rocked the hell out of those sessions.
God. It is nerve-wracking, though, because you're like, okay, whatever I say, whatever I do affects my future. Don't mess it up. Like,
how do you think would you have, how do I want to phrase this? How do you think that would have affected if we had just started here at the table with her as a young adult by the lights of the world, as a teenager, instead of having that deep backstory? Because I could have just be like, yeah, this happened, and here you are, sort of thing.
No. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I would have asked for more sessions with you. Because I love a backstory. I love a backstory. And it's like I want to hear everyone else's backstory. And I want to tell my backstory, but you kind of have to just do it in character. You can't just skip all that. But I think it would have affected the way that I played her because I wouldn't have known that she had, childhood trauma. Like, it might have come up, But then it's like, well, no, what actually happened?
Very different playing through it too.
Yeah.
Than just mentioning it or
Yeah, or like reading it on a piece of paper. It's like, oh, that's what happened. Cool. It's like, no, I want to experience it the way that she experienced it, so that I can play her correctly, or play her to the best that she can be. So, yeah, always a backstory. I love a backstory.
Well, it gives you context, doesn't it?
Well, it gives you purpose.
That too.
It literally gives you purpose in your character because you're fighting for your character. I don't want her to die. I want her to live and I want her to survive, but I want her to learn.
Well, and this wasn't recorded, but I mean, I guess in episode 5 in Tributary, when she popped into Crystal Remembrance and saw all of the enactment of Zed and all of that, there was a hint of that. But we actually, Katrin actually got to meet one future version of herself, who I refer to as the matron or matron Katrin, and that was one of the last of the off-screen ones of the pre-streaming ones. So that, yeah, it was. I don't know that. I definitely would not have been able to create that character as crisply as if we had not also had the past, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe unique out of the characters, she had a glimpse and actually got to interact with what one version of a fully actualized Katrin at the height of her power, you know, toward the end of her career, but just crackling with arcane might, but also wisdom.
Yeah.
Also some wisdom at that point, you know. Very different style from her mentor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, completely
so different.
Completely different. And this is saying something probably equivalent to him. I mean, and he's a legendary figure. But she had a different focus, and that's kind of having that through line is just, I don't know, it's amazing, you know, to
almost need it, especially for a table like this. I think everyone having a semblance of a backstory or a semblance of their character makes it so much more impactful than just sitting at a table and goofing around, which is fine. Like, I love the
goof around. Pretzels. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I love the goof around D&D sessions. Like, they're so fun. But I think the premise of this story is just so different that you can't just you could be goofy, obviously. I do it, but in character, I think it's different because the story being told is different. And that's always my respect for it is kind of, no, I'm not going to do something stupid. The chair episode, that's the only goofy thing that I thought would be funny enough to put in there, but
it was funny, but I mean, it was still definitely in character for Katrin. I mean, terrifying.
Can you imagine that happening?
I mean, she would be an incredible assassin if she wanted to be. You know, that's a lot of anytime that you have a silent, nigh undetectable ability that can literally think people to death.
Terrifying.
It's pretty, you know, and she's not an Utini sub-chieftain who can just soak up round after round of that damage, you know, just a typical patrician. That was episode 9 for those of you who don't remember. Watch it. Yeah, I know. Well, no, and in that moment, that was because I think obviously your character, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the way that Katrin evaluates the world is definitely through the lens of the intellectual and of education.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like core to the character.
Yeah.
So beyond, and I'm not just talking magic. I mean, just in general, her and Livia, for example, it's one of the reasons they became so close with each other because, you know, Livia's third light of wisdom, has tried to studiously apply herself along different channels, you know, because she was born and bred to be a stateswoman, but still, you know, still right there. So having a patrician, having a lady Lady Julia, who was just everything that Katrin isn't and probably despises, and having her be in a position of power and wealth merely because of bloodline and with no merit is probably anathema to her.
Yeah.
Just the thought of that's, you know, stomach turning.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So having her humiliated on the beach it didn't seem. I don't know if you felt like you were pushing it as a player. I thought you were still well within the bounds of the story. You know.
I think yes. I think it was probably.
Because at some point you were like, "I'm sorry, guys."
I literally was because I was like, I wanted. It's a funny moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't match the story completely, but it's something that she would do because yes, I think in her head it's like, you don't deserve this. You're crazy. Get out of here. Like, no, like you don't deserve it.
To that, I'm going to go ahead and take a attack of opportunity here and say
Rude.
there was a moment. I don't think this was recorded. So, sorry, sometimes this blends together, but where Tatiana was like, I think this was one of our pre-games, and she said, and this was pretty early days, you know, and for Tatiana, she had never even gamed before.
Yeah.
When she started, I mean, this is it. You guys are seeing her grow up on camera.
I love it.
And she only had one prologue session because she was one of the later players. So it was a hell of a session, but we had to cram in a lot in that. So she had said that one of her difficulties is like, I don't know when to follow the story and when to, and this has just stuck with me now, when to go rogue.
Yeah.
And I lost the exact wording of the question I wanted to ask, but I think that the thrust of it was, how did you know, including the chair incident, it always felt to me like you were consonant with the story, but you would also do things that were definitely out of left field with the character.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So did that ever feel like you were threading a needle, or did you just kind of instinctually know that, like, okay, we're respecting the story, but we're playing the character to the hilt, or like how did that land with you? Because I never felt like you were trepidatious about quote unquote going rogue.
Right.
You know?
I don't see it as going rogue. I see it as being true to your character. I think there's a difference where, again, you do the prologue stuff, you get to know your character, you play your character, and you do them justice, and you do what they would do. And I think knowing their intentions and knowing their emotional state and understanding that is a huge thing going into it. Going rogue is, you know, if I had
murder hobo, yeah,
right. If I had like done
crazy.
Something like crazy, like going rogue.
Which is not which for the record, because this is gonna get streamed, and I don't want Tatiana eating me.
No, Tatiana, you were great.
No, your aces on. No, it was her way of expressing it. And it was very powerful. You know, she's a poet with her words. I mean, it was a very clear way of expressing, like, basically how crazy, or what are the bounds of this character. And if this is literally your first experience with role playing, that's not necessarily clear.
No,
what the bounds
it's
of
a good question
of a story where characters kill each other characters sometimes, characters lie sometimes, characters do all kinds of things, even though you're still, you know, ostensibly the good guys, and I think largely, even objectively, the good guys. Slavery, Secret of the Word, you know, all of that. So I think it's a really good question, but anyway, that was...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of, it's knowing your character and seeing them develop and seeing them grow and understanding that if you have something to say or if you want to do something, just do it. There's no... I mean, don't like... it within the bounds of the world, I think, which makes sense, but it's like if you become a pyro and you want to go burn down a building, like... Okay, but now we have to talk about that, right?
Right now, there's
consequences, right? There's consequences for actions, and then there's praise for action. It's get what you want to say, get it out. Which is why I love when you do the rounds. You know, what are you doing right now? Where are you? Who are you talking to? What's happening? Because a lot of stuff comes out of that. It's your chance. It's your chance to. I thought about what I wanted to say as a character, and this is what I'm going to say.
It's a useful tool as a game master. For me, it's also necessary because this story has so many... It is a sprawling tale.
There are so many people.
And there are a lot of people. There are a lot of threads.
Yeah.
You know, I can't don't have quite as much RAM as I used to, you know. So it's like trying to hold all of that simultaneously. It's hard.
Yeah, and I think you've created a world that just is so immersive and so massive that it's easy to kind of do whatever. Like you're not forced to, oh, we're at a tavern today.
No.
We're gonna go shopping for potions, which is fine. Those games
the shopping episode, but I never want.
I
the
love the
players-
shopping episode.
Yeah, you do.
I really do. Oh my god.
I never want the players to feel. We were joking about this on that Constructed Chaos stream, where Alex was like, "I'm not trying to railroad you, their GM. I'm not trying to." Oh no! It was when they were doing the Pokemon. Because at the beginning of the month they do a Pokemon D&D, which is a really interesting hybrid. And not like that. I didn't grow up with that. You know, that wasn't my world, so I've had to learn a lot about Pokemon. But anyway, his younger brother Sam actually jams on those sessions. He's like, "I'm not trying to railroad you, I promise." And so in chat, of course, me being me, I was going choo choo. And then I was finding the emoji for the train,
God.
and everything. And Alex thought it was really funny. But I never. And it wasn't. It was a string of bad rolls, and the players were trying to do something that was really pretty difficult to do. Yeah. But I never want the players to feel railroaded. I do. There are moments of inevitability, and here's the difference to me. There are moments where this is the logical and at this point inexorable culmination of the choices that you have made, or especially in this tale, the choices that the previous generation made for you.
Yeah.
And now you're dealing with that.
Yep.
And I think if I've had one solid success as a GM and as an armchair historian, studied history most of my life, I love it, is taking that feeling of these characters were not born into a blank slate. These characters were born into a very specific, I'm doing this because the map of Germentum's here, but into a very specific time.
Yeah.
AUC 2776 and a very specific place. And within that, then you have choices, you have agency.
Right.
But you don't, much like in real life, it's you're born where you're born and when you're born.
Yeah. Which I think was such a great telling tale, because it's a lot of D&D for me is, here's the town, here's your character, do the thing. Whereas this was so curated in a way that it's like, no, you grew up here, this is your home, here's your background.
Right.
Or history, like Titus. Like, Donnie plays that character so well, and it's the history. I can't even.
Yeah, I can't imagine somebody else playing him at this point.
Go Donnie.
Yeah.
And it's more the amount of history that he has to remember, or things that he has to do within Germentum. And it's funny because Katrin lives in a hut outside of Germentum.
Directly outside.
Outside. But it's still like her authority there is just there. Well, sort of. But with him, he's got a whole town, a whole city. And
a small city now. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that though, because it's not just, let's go on an adventure. It's no, you guys are doing, it's funny because it's not mundane things around the city. It's you're solving problems and you're actually taking care of a city.
You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of leadership.
No, I love that.
So to come back here, we were not going to get through all of this. That's fine. I was overly ambitious.
I love it.
It's fine.
Just like quick.
I'll see. Yeah, please.
Make it quick.
Girl, have you met me? Okay. Have you met this GM?
No idea.
So the process I do want to touch on process for illustrations and process for theme song.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've really talked about that on camera.
No, not
before.
really.
So illustrations. What did you do for illustrations with our wonderful Clark Oclesa, if I'm pronouncing that correctly? Sorry if I'm not.
I think it was a really good experience. I don't think I've never done that before.
He's a consummate professional.
Yeah.
Clark is, yeah.
Oh, it was great. Giving a very detailed description of what I imagined her looking like, providing like reference pictures and things like that. It was a fun experience, and it was quick. It was so quick. It was like a day, and he was like, "Here you go. Here's some samples," and I was like,
quick.
"What?" Okay. But tweaking and choosing things, and it was such an easy process that I was like, wow, this looks exactly like I imagined her to look.
We have been, I will actually use the word blessed.
Oh, yeah.
By the people who have, the creative people who have been just, not even adjacent to, I mean, but just outside of the table. Clark, Steve, and now John. I mean, our art director, he's coming out with some great, I haven't even shown you the character I'm going to play.
Ooh.
On Alex's stream.
Yeah.
She's wonderful, like it, and it's always funny how like the illustrations will then inform, I don't know if this happened for you, but like for me, the illustrations then inform some details that I didn't know about the character. And I don't know if you felt that way about Katrin, like when it came back, did it give you anything? Did it sharpen anything for you?
I think it just put her on paper. And I think for me that was a really big thing, because you can imagine, play the character and kind of pretend
have it in your head.
Yeah, and you can kind of put your own face on it in a sense. But for me to see her in all of her glory, it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's definitely her. To put something on paper like that made it more real in a sense. Because you don't get that a lot. Like with the other characters that I've played in D&D, just in general.
No, it's a privilege to have that kind of talent.
Yeah, and you can do like...
I can draw a straight line, so yeah.
But you can do like the online stuff where they provide a picture. You can search like Google a picture of, a Kenku.
And you can find something, yeah.
Yeah, but like to have something drawn and created for you that is the epitome of your character is really cool. It's really awesome. Because you look at her and you're like, oh, damn, okay. And then when we all dressed up, it was really great because because we all kind of do look like our characters.
A Halloween episode, which was not my doing. I was not trying to do that.
But it was great. It was so cool. But and in retrospect, I think it's really, it's great. It's a good experience.
And then the theme song.
The theme song was crazy.
Everybody was jealous of her theme song when it came.
It was beautiful. So I listen to a lot of movie scores, and so does my husband Jeff. And so like we have vinyls upon vinyls of just movie scores. And I am in love with Lady in the Water. You can quote me. I love that movie.
I'm going to blaspheme and I'm going to say I don't know that movie.
Stop it. M. Night Shyamalan. It's a great movie. It's a bedtime story, yeah. And I love that movie. A lot of people don't like it. Why?
I don't remember when that came
out. Don't know why. But the music is just so beautiful, and it moved me when I was in college. Like my freshman year in college, I heard it. I was listening to my headphones on a train, and that whole album came on, and I was like, "What is this? This is amazing!" And it was my introduction into movie scores, and that was a huge influence in her theme song because it just, I mean, Lady in the Water, Born in the River. Come on.
Yeah.
So it was a big influence, and working with Steve was great. Like it was easy. I'm really detailed. I appreciated that he was like, please be detailed. I told him up to the seconds of I don't really feel 1 minute and 2 seconds. That's a little weird.
I did the same thing for a lot of the early ones until we really established the feel of the universe. Yeah. Musically.
But same as getting an image of your character, but getting a song that went with it.
It's pretty powerful stuff.
It was great. I was like, what? I made Jeff listen to it, and he was like, I love this. This is amazing. And I was like, yeah, that's what we're doing.
I love that your husband, who is not the biggest gamer, it's role player. Role player. Yeah. Has been so supportive of your journey.
Oh, always.
That's really been.
You're never gonna watch this, Jeff, but love you.
Yeah. Who knows? Never say never.
Who knows? I'll make him watch it later. It's fine.
Well, we actually have kind of touched on a lot. I have several categories here, and I have like things that I would be remiss if we didn't hit on.
I love that you have categories.
So
it's very you.
I mean, this is how I function.
I love it.
This is how you deal with the executive function, my ADHD darlings out there. I guess I wanted to ask about. Yeah, I think I wanted to ask about the flow at the table, and it's a little difficult to get into into precise language. But how did you feel about? I mean, this is as we were joking before. This is your this is your debriefing.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, how did you feel? How did the flow at the table feel to you? How did you find your footing? What worked? What didn't? I think eventually you found ways to do everything that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly, but
yeah.
What was that flow like with your players and then with me? Because that's a different relationship.
Right.
Related, obviously, and then all together as a chorus.
You just asked me like 17 questions.
I did, and we're gonna go so over on this, and that's okay.
That's okay. I think this table has a lot of flow, and in the sense that we're all very.
It's a lot of creative people.
Well, yeah, and we all have big voices, but I think we're all very patient. And I say that in the sense that if somebody is having a moment and having a talk and doing a thing and it is emotional or it's not or it's funny or whatever, we give space for them. And I think we had a pretty good kind of round table understanding of like, I want to say something. And so everyone kind of just like...
And we never really talked about that. That just happened.
I think it naturally happened, which is amazing because sometimes at tables it doesn't happen that way.
No, it doesn't.
And people will talk over each other, and it gets to be kind of chaotic. And we kind of had to do it. We had to do it here because of the whole setup. So everyone's mic'd. Like, we can't have side conversations as much. And I think it kind of forced us to be more of a team in that sense than to, like, I'm just here for me, you know?
I never got that sense from anybody.
It created more of a family feel than it did anything. And I think having, the 6 players was a good, even amount of people that it's cozy in here, but it felt good. It was never like, oh, I don't want to sit next to, Tatiana. Like, no, you always gave space for so many people in here, and it was a good experience.
That's really good to hear back.
Of course.
That's really good.
I would change the chairs. Corey, love you. No, I'm kidding. But I think and the amount of space that we have, because I like to take up a whole table. So this was a good amount of space.
No, I mean, it's hard to appreciate when you're not in studio just how freaking big this table is.
It is a beast.
I had, different topic, but like, man, the first half dozen episodes, I was still kind of twigging on how big the table was. Yeah. Because, we gamed literally like floor, living room. Oh my God. everybody in a circle. Yep. Very, campfire. All of that, and this is a real different experience.
I mean, it's
like a grander.
It is
like a grand experience.
Are we rich?
Yeah.
No, but it is crazy because it's like this table is such a valuable piece of.
It's part of Darkeport.
I mean, it's a player.
Yeah.
It truly is, and it's amazing because the quality of it too is. Now I'm just going to talk up everything in here, but the artwork. I want to interview everything. like at our 1 year mark or something. I want to interview Austin, who did the extraordinary. I wanted to say like woodsmith. I mean carpenter, I guess, but like there's just a mastery of the craft, that I want to go through that process and just like really thank him on camera for how much this has contributed to our own, esprit de corps. Yeah. I use that phrase a lot, as a GM because we're talking about a war story, but it's like definitely, it's a pick me up. How did you feel our flow was? Oh, like you and me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's always been easy. I think I don't think it's ever been a question that you and I can game really well together.
Because I asked you to go some places.
I
storyteller,
love it though because it challenged me more in my character than it did, I don't know. I think the lore was a lot, but it was great because I had knowledge that no one else did, and I was like,
As your character should. As your character.
Exactly. And it was a nice little wow, the appreciation for you to hand me something so valuable was always I can't let you down in a sense, because the amount of knowledge of everything was just, it was powerful. And I think it made me appreciate your story so much more, and also realize that it might be a war story, but it's a love story. And for me,
there's all kinds of stuff.
Well, yeah, for me it was kind of a tale of love, and it's
a war that's being fought for love.
Exactly.
Actually.
Oh, really?
From a couple different angles.
Oh, well, that makes sense, yeah.
From a couple different angles.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But I think you and I have always, you're always on my left. So it's good because you're like my safety net.
Wow.
Which is powerful in itself, but also just the things that I had to learn and challenged myself to do was really great. We were talking about the therapeutic, gaming, and it's no, it is. Having a really good GM, stop it. Look at you.
I was doing so well. No, I was doing so well through this whole damn interview.
Oh my God. But it is. Having a supportive GM makes this 1,000 times easier.
One of the many things that I took into consideration doing this was when I realized that this was going to be the story that I was telling on day 2 of Darkeport of this whole project, was man, is there some reasonable way that I can involve other people in my war trauma and my real life war trauma? And I think the answer is yes, but that was a whole consideration, because this was not, as you know, this was not originally the story I was going to tell. That's going to be campaign 2, and you'll get to see what that was.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing worked as a chorus.
Oh yeah, of course. And I think everyone involved too. You think of all the lovely people.
Literally not possible without.
Yeah.
Without production.
Come on, production crew.
Literally doesn't happen.
And I think that again, that's a lot of things that people don't think about. Is you don't see all of this. You don't see back so there.
Much.
There's a lot.
So much that has to happen to make this happen.
Yep. Sound.
Justin was just in here, meticulously adjusting the shots and building the infrastructure so that the software infrastructure, so that this looks appropriate. And,
exactly.
All of that. Having Toby scream. Having Toby scream from
10 seconds.
10 seconds from us. That's good. It's good.
And we're all
yeah.
freaking out now. But it gives such a good perspective and appreciation for all the work that goes into it. Because a lot of people all you see is us at a table.
A stream, right.
Streaming.
Right.
And storytelling, whereas it's...
We don't just take our phones out and...
Ha ha ha.
Use our phone. Really?
Yeah. If only it were that easy. No. So that was always a wow moment, walking into not only the studio space, but the space beyond. Yeah, it's incredible.
I always wish, you know this, but I'm... One of the things that drives me, maybe I shouldn't say this on camera, but I'm going to.
Ooh.
One of the things that drives me is I really want to get to a place where this can be a paying gig and support the players, because it's always because I want people to be able to experience this. I would love to be able to hang out outside because we're all really freaking busy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, everybody here has a full-time plus job.
Yep.
Everybody here.
Yep.
I'm probably, have the most luxury because I have really, in terms of freedom, because I have flexibility a lot of flexibility in my schedule, but it's still work.
It's still work.
It's still work.
We all still work.
And to be able to have this just incredible luxury of being able to, like, not have to stream after an 8-hour or 10-hour or 12-hour day, and then go out to dinner with each other and hang out with each other and all that. Like, that's a powerful motivator, Anika.
Of course.
That's a powerful thing that just, like, really keeps me, keeps me propelled forward when it's like, God, I don't want to do the timestamps. Timestamps are not fun because I want to just watch it as a story, and not where my logical brain is having to sit there and dice it up into, like, literal time period. I don't know.
Yeah,
and then I wind up watching it twice, and it's like,
then you're like, oh God.
it, like, gets me. Anyway.
I love it.
Yeah. I guess one of the last things that I wanted to be sure to ask you about was, I'll set this up a little bit. When I started gaming, as we know, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there were almost no women doing this at all.
Yeah.
I was lucky because the mother of my heart, my legal guardian, did happen to be a gamer. But for her, it was more like just kind of part of a sampler tray of social activities that she would do,
Okay.
So she would do like murder mysteries, which is kind of actually we'd call that LARPing now, but it was like, she'd do murder mysteries. She'd do just, huge into the community, did lots of stuff there, organized events, organized rituals, made a lot of connections. So we were always doing something, and then sometimes there would be gaming, but it would be more like one-offs, or it would be just kind of whenever we got to it. Sometimes I would torture her with my character creation systems, and I would make her, and she would be like, okay, I'll do this, but I'm not driving you to school tomorrow, because I'd missed the bus, and like that. Cute. But really beyond that, it was pretty rare even to have one woman in the group. And one of the huge changes I've seen this is now my fourth decade. I'm now entering my fourth decade as a GM. And one of the huge changes I've witnessed and had the privilege of living through is watching as gaming becomes more and more and more available to people. And that doesn't mean that you have to change. I would not say, maybe people think differently. I don't think I've compromised the story one iota in terms of intensity or depth or verisimilitude or anything. I'm telling exactly the story that I want to tell in a way that I think is still, like, respectful of the players, but it's right there. Some people see this kind of opening up of the hobby. To me, it's an art form, but the hobby as bad. And as watering it down, and I get that. Like, I really do, and I understand how that can happen too. In that context, how has that been stepping into a space that has been essentially from the beginning of the hobby, really male dominated, and just owning it. My own commitment to at least at the start, I really did want a balanced table because better stories, better humans, and different perspectives. Yeah, that's a huge one. That was the big one for me, because you've had a very different life from me, very different life from Corey, very different life from Tatiana, very different life from Allie. I mean, we're all very different people. Really different people. Like none of us have similar backgrounds. Justin and I both grew up in Del Valley, but that's about it. Yeah. And even there it was different, and it was a different class and all that stuff. So how has that been for you? Or I don't. It's kind of an open-ended question, but I just want to throw it out there. We've talked a little bit about this before, but now it's memorialized. Now it's on film. So yeah. I think it's just I came to the game late, which
is kind of a blessing and a curse. Blessing side is just that I didn't have to deal with any of that growing up.
That's true.
So if I had been, a really big LARPer or D&D person, I wouldn't have had to deal with the backlash of being a woman or a girl in that sense. And coming into it late in the game, the acceptance is so much higher than I think I would have even thought. I think having an equal table it's safe. It's nice. Like, I like it. And like you said, it's like everyone has a different story. I think I would have felt a little different had I been the only woman at this table.
You would have? You think you would have?
I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I would have gamed the way that I did. And not to say that like I wouldn't have given it all, but I think having kind of that like that nice safety net as a woman to be gaming with other women, where I don't know, it feels better.
It's pretty extraordinary. I can't emphasize what a big change it's been.
Oh yeah.
That I've watched this. It probably started somewhere in the 90s when I really saw it opening up, and then of course I know everybody says this, but the trifecta of the Marvel movies, Stranger Things, and then Critical Role were all 1, 2, 3 were like that was a big.
Stranger Things, I think, was
deal.
a huge influence for me.
For you specifically.
For me,
right?
I love Stranger Things. Yeah. Oh my god. But at the same time, you saw in like the second season where the one girl finally joins the crew and they play.
Right. It kind of reflects that time, honestly.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's that kind of like influence has been really great, and I hope that it influences younger girls and women today, because it's like, dude, like, it's not screw the guys, like, do your thing.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see it on social media too, that there's a lot of women GMs.
I love me really
that.
Excited.
Yeah.
That has me really excited, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what this new generation of GMs, all of them, particularly the women, but all of them, just bring forward into the world.
Oh yeah.
And what fresh stories and fresh eyes, that they approach things with. It's just a fact. Like as you get older, it gets harder and harder. Like I work really hard to keep my mind expansive. Mm-hmm. I make sure that I'm always reading new things. I make sure that I'm watching new things. I try really hard to talk to different people, to different people, but it's just hard. It gets harder. So I would love to see what people bring,
Oh yeah.
the people are in their 20s and 20s.
Oh yeah.
Early 30s are bringing literally and metaphorically bringing to the table.
Yeah, and I think it had such a large surge in popularity in the past couple of years, and it's been really great to see, because it is truly it's such a good game. Whether you're playing a one shot or just doing a whole campaign, but it's so great to see. I don't know. I love it. It makes me happy because it's like you can watch like Critical Role and you can be like, oh wow, this is great. There's women at the table.
They're right
like,
there.
They're right there in front of you. Yeah, and like I don't know, makes me prideful to think that that it's just more inclusive now. Yeah.
Better stories, better humans.
Yeah.
I'm keeping that.
Do it.
Well, before I ask you my, actually no. Let me slip this in. What were the? I think maybe we've covered this, but is there anything about the challenges or the joy of portraying Katrin that you want to have on film that you haven't said yet? Because I want you to be able to go back, 5, 10, hell, longer than many years back to this and say, it's there, It's important to me.
I don't know. Like things that have happened in her life, or things like portraying? What do you mean?
As the player. Like things that were really difficult. I know you had mentioned the lore. Maybe that's the only one that was really, really rough.
I think playing Katrin was... it was easy and it wasn't. I think having to, like I said earlier, it's like I became such an extrovert in the past couple of years that playing an introvert kind of has me going back to that, which wasn't difficult. It was just like kind of going back to your roots. So it was easier to play her because I've been there. But it was difficult to play somebody that hadn't been loved. I think for me, it's funny because whenever we do our
So important.
yeah, whenever we do our before we start, we say our intentions, and the past couple of mine I think have been somewhere around love, because for her it just wasn't there. She gave her first hug, I think, ever to Titus.
Maybe so. Maybe one of the Kithki. Maybe one of the Kithki.
Oh, probably one of the Kithki.
Yeah, but to another human, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I believe it was to Titus, and that was in episode 0 now.
Yeah.
That's out there.
And it's things that, you know, I always had to say, like, she's going to do something she's never done before, because she's never done it before. And I think for her, which is strange because she grew up so close to Kithki.
Yeah.
Which is very odd. We were talking about it just now, where Kithki are very loving, playful, expressive people that she didn't take that. That wasn't in her mind because she didn't think that she could be that way. I mean, she had some damn trauma. And being loved was never something, it's not a mathematical thing that you can put in, you know, a calculator. Like you can't calculate it in her mind. And so it wasn't really important. But it was difficult to play in that sense, because playing someone that's never been loved, I mean, geez, that's tough. That's a hard one. But then growing and learning to love, that was amazing.
That was an incredible journey to watch.
Oh my God.
By the way.
I loved playing it because it's like, I want her, like in my head, I was like, I want her to fall in love with somebody. Like, please, like who? And it didn't happen. It did, but that's a secret. But it just...
That may come out in the fullness of time.
I hope so.
Yes.
Y'all are gonna freak out. It's crazy. No, I think playing her, I think the lore was always something that, you know, you have to sit down and you gotta...
It's the grind.
You have to.
It's the grind of the character.
Especially with her.
Yeah.
And me, I don't memorize stuff. Like, I'm like, la, 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 like, I'm like, whatever. But with this, it was very intentional to be like, okay, I need to step it up.
What is your, I promise I'm not going to end on this.
You're fine.
What is your greatest regret?
Oh.
Of in terms of not seeing either as played out, or that you are not going to get to play through as a player now.
Ooh, I think eventually it'll play out, but...
I told you I had a good one for you.
Yeah, you did. You already know the answer, though. You really do know the answer. I'm, like, looking at it. But I think her family... Well, yeah. It's been poked and prodded for so long, where she has been skirting around her family's
the edges
hut.
of the family, yep.
And, you know, can she see anything? Is there anything in there? And it's always dark, and it's like, are they even here? Like, and I wanna play that out, but it's also the love that she never received from them. She wants closure. And I think with that, that's her biggest regret, is for right now not going in there, just bursting in and being like, we need to talk, and being a badass about it.
That would have been a hell.
That would have been
Anika.
Terrifying. She probably would have died. She's made of paper. But yeah, I mean, I think that's my only regret, is not pursuing, because that's the thing that eats her. That is her emotional, like, weight.
Isn't that real, though?
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, that feels very real to me.
Yep. Absolutely.
That someone would have that regret.
Oh yeah.
And just to be clear for our faraway friends, Anika and I we're going to talk about what she wants me to do with with Katrin in the world, because Katrin didn't just evaporate or die, you know.
Yeah.
She's still
there.
She's still in the world.
She's hanging out.
Okay. So before I give you the last question, because that I'm asking literally everybody, because I want to get as many perspectives as I can. Do you have any questions for me as a GM that I can answer right now?
Ooh, put me on the spot.
I'm good at that.
Who's your favorite character?
I love you all equally.
Shut up.
That is, you know what? That is so funny.
It's a sneaky question.
No, that is some voodoo, because I was teasing the hell out of Randy last night.
Rude.
You haven't met them yet, and I want you to. But Jacob and Ruby picked us up, and we drove over to the house that we were going to be at. And Ruby's hilarious. She's got like this is just crackling energy, and she gets inspiration by far the most at the table.
Nice.
And Randy was lobbying for inspiration. I'm like, no, you were just doing your job last session. I'm pretty hard on him.
Poor Randy.
So how did this guy? I said something like, I love all of you equally, but I like Ruby best.
Shady angel.
You
don't have to have a favorite. It was just a...
No. It's each of these characters. I don't know, maybe people are going to think this is a cop out, but each of these characters is like I'm gonna try to give a little bit of substance and be succinct in this. Each of these characters is inextricably intertwined with the narrative and with the story. All of them, these archetypes were not on accident. Not and I can maybe at a different time or whatever, when I'm riffing, I'll just hear about myself and kind of go through, and maybe I'll talk about archetypes or something like that and why I chose them. So yours was the prodigy wheel worker. Like, I knew she was going to be very young. I knew she was going to be incredibly intelligent. I knew that she was going to be a child of the atom, in the sense that Figulus detonated Zed, and basically, Oppenheimer created the team, but he's the face of the nuclear era we live in now.
Yep.
And everything has been changed since that. So Figulus is the reason why the era that these characters are in exists, because he made that fateful decision. Katrin literally wouldn't exist without him. At least not that version of her would not exist without him. So I knew a lot of that about that character going in, and I would say it is, and it's no mistake or coincidence that you and Donnie were the two people that I started with the most. Because if I was going to pick two characters who were not necessarily my favorite, but you couldn't tell the story without them. You really couldn't. He's the obvious one.
Yeah.
He had to frickin' audition, because I had to make sure that someone could carry that role. Yeah. That is a lot. That has almost as much, not quite, but almost as much background information as yours. Yeah. Just because of the lineages and all of that.
All of that.
And your character, because his character represents the past and the center point and the stability, and your character is literally the future, which is why alone out of the players you got a glimpse of what your actualized future self was. And all of the other characters add like these essential layers to it. And I couldn't tell the same story, but those two characters you have to have basically as touchstones to it. And then, Tatiana's, playing a priestess from the other. Randy is this wild X factor that hasn't existed in 2 centuries. In Nalishli is literally the creation of a goddess who's trying to understand, and we're exploring humanity. Through that, what it means to be human. Through that character, and then Corey has some heavy shit, because it's like not precisely war trauma, but it's all of his dealing with his deep PTSD and all, and as far as the character goes. And I would say those are all those are important, but it'd be a very different story if it was just Katrin and Titus going. Yeah. So that's there's my roundabout answer.
You heard it here first. It's me.
Hopefully that was it's me.
It's me.
Hopefully that was diplomatic enough. And Do you have any other questions or any other things that you want to get out there before I ask you my final?
I don't know. I guess if you were to change anything about what's happened here, would you? Or is there anything that...
It's always a tricky thing.
Yeah.
It's always a tricky thing in life because you don't know. We're mere mortals. And we truly will never know how the tapestry of creation wove together. I mean, it's one of the massive things about Zed. It's the temerity of a human, of a mortal man in this case, going through and daring to change things, and when Publia told him in that, you don't have the right to do this. There is a lot of truth to that. He did it anyway, and we will see if that was correct or not in the final analysis, and that may take 3 campaigns before that's, fully judged and weighed. But, I look back and all the stuff that I would change, it's nothing with you guys. It's nothing with the players.
Yeah.
Everything that I see is like when I miss story beats, when I was supposed to fill in this I finally got my my 12-year-old archer Kuin girl that I've been trying, that's been like circling around like a freaking parking lot vulture, trying to find a slot to go into since the 4th episode. I find she's there. If you go back and you watch it, she's there.
Yeah.
And it's just stuff like that. Like I wish. This is going to sound like, I'm wallowing or pity party, but I wish that I could bring more of these threads to bear simultaneously. That's what I would change. I wish that I could manipulate more in my hands than just weave them, make a tighter weave. That's really the only regret that I have as far as the story goes. I think directionally the story's correct.
Oh yeah.
I think,
I mean, that's all you. For the most part.
For the most part.
Until Allie changes everything.
until the Fire Nation attacks.
Oh gosh.
I mean, no, I mean, and that's a perfect example of that, like, of that spontaneity
going
you were
rogue
talking about, and going rogue, and just.
She came here on a mission. She wanted to know, and I love when players do that because it's
beautiful.
It's great because it changes. Obviously, it changes and I love watching that too because it's like
as I scrambled
your face is like, what is happening? And then you're like, shit, and then you have to completely which makes for a really great GM. But it's just, of course, and that's what makes this game fun, is that there is no scripted stuff.
Oh God, no, it couldn't be. It couldn't be.
You can't.
There's no way.
Because there's too many people at this table that have differences and wants and needs that their character wants and needs as well. It's really great.
The last thing I'll say kind of on the craft of GMing here is that I have gone back and forth on coming to the table with, like, there's a timeline of events. Leptis Regium is going to be Leptis Regium no matter what. That's marching on. But in terms of the actual individual sessions and play, coming here, how detailed do I want to try? Do I have an agenda? Do I just kind of come with some story beats? Do I just okay, no, this is just what we're doing? And when I feel like I'm at my best as a storyteller, when I'm most satisfied with it, Anika, and maybe this answers your question better, is when I feel like I am merely, but to a excellent degree, portraying the world. And if I can just portray the world, and here's the situation, things have been set in motion, now y'all go do something.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So it's kind of a sandbox, but with players that really are into the theme and you trust and everything, that and that trust you, that's a hell of a place to be.
Yeah. Look at you. You created it.
Yeah.
Oh, stop.
I put the scaffolding in place. I put the scaffolding in place.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to ask, because I've been asking all the creatives, and I will just continue to run through and ask everybody the same thing. Yeah. I'm seeing something emerge in gaming that has not existed before. And by that I mean, I feel like this is an emergent art form that is not a television show, although it has aspects of that.
Sure.
I often say my dad likens this to a radio show. It has elements of a soap opera. It has elements of, in this case, it happens to be like a fantasy epic, you know, that you would be reading maybe in a book.
Yeah.
What do you feel like gaming is as a medium? Do you feel like it is its own unique medium and a different art form? Do you feel like it's a variation on what's come before, like a logical variation on it? Or any way that you want to answer that question? I've deliberately left that asking it in a really open-ended way, but does that make sense?
Kind of. I think gaming, obviously, it's...
Or impromptu theater is another one that people have told me.
Right. I think any sort of gaming, acting, anything like that, it all stems from the past. Like, we're just recreating what was already created, if that makes sense. So it's just our interpretation of what it should be. And
humans have been telling stories a long time.
A long time. Yeah. And I mean, storytelling is storytelling. I don't know. I've always seen it as an art form too, because you have to think of all the things that go into it. We just talked about, you know, our character art and the music that went into it. There's always something beyond that. You created this map. Like, everything in this room has been created by something or someone. Like, every single thing. Everything is set up.
Like literally.
Everything is set up precise. Everything is, And in that, it's like, it's funny because you walk in and it's like, oh, it's a gaming table, but it's like, is it a gaming table? What if it's like a dining room table? You know, like, and there's interpretation with it, but gaming has always stemmed from the past. And like, I don't know, it's like playing a really intense game of Scrabble. Like, finding the right words and using the right, you know, body language or whatever to tell a story.
And this is why I'm asking everyone, because everyone has given me a different answer.
I love it.
It's really beautiful.
That's awesome, yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Do you think so? That sounds to me like it harkens back more like, I don't know, the Greek bards telling these their epic tales and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just an old
It's like the modern
story.
update.
Right.
Modern update to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like watching movies and listening to shows and doing all that. It all stems from storytelling, like all of it. Look at the game of life. Literally is just a storytelling of your teeny tiny little character buying a car and getting a job. Like, you know, it's that board game mentality. Jumanji, huge Jumanji fan. But like, it's storytelling. It's always been, which is what makes it great.
It's something that I think essentially all humans can connect with on some level.
It's words. It's a lot of great words put together to enact emotion.
If not this campaign, then others. There's a story out there for everybody.
Yeah.
Just about.
Exactly.
Well, my darling.
Well, dang.
We have come to the end, and much like I told you, if the last words that you spoke to Figulus Neus were, "I hope you find your peace," and if those are the last words that those characters ever speak to each other or ever exchange between those characters, that feels like a fitting place, like a fitting end. Yeah. It's bittersweet.
It is. It's bittersweet, but it's true.
I have a surprise for you.
Stop it. These people need to stop surprising
I do
me.
have a surprise.
Stop.
Don't I? No, I do. Did I shove it back
Did
here?
I get lost? The thing's under this table. I can't.
Wait. It did get shoved back. Anyway, that joke will go unexplained.
I'm dead.
So, guess what you left in the studio?
What did I leave in the studio? Oh my god.
Your dice box.
Oh.
So I had put it on top of that shelf. Do you want to take this with you, or do you want to leave it?
Oh, I'm leaving it here.
Okay.
So I bought those dice specifically for Katrin.
That's right, you did.
So, yeah. So I literally was like, I need specific dice for her.
I'd say they've served you pretty well.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Okay.
I'm here.
We will leave them in the studio then.
Love that. That's sweet.
I'm kind of fond of you.
Aw, I'm fond of you. And all of you. I'm just kidding. Of course.
Well, faraway friends, curiosity seekers, and connoisseurs of fantasy everywhere, thank you so much for giving us the greatest gift there is, which is your time. I have been here in conversation with Anika Van Boom, and she was the first to the fellowship. She obviously will not be the last. The circle is open but never broken, as some say. So you are free to return when life makes that possible, and the winds bring you back into the port of dark.
The Port of Dark. I love it.
Until then, as you go on your journey, as you go on your own journeys out there, and hopefully your own story arcs, take care of yourselves and stay curious. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye. Adorable. I love it.